While at the summit, I also managed to get a few minutes with the German representative for the Western Balkans, Manuel Sarrazin, to talk about EU enlargement and, of course, Kosovo, Serbia. Thank you for making the time for this interview. I'm going to try and cover as many topics as I can in a short period of time. First of all, I want to talk about Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama's recent suggestion that the Kosovo-Serbia dialogue be sort of upgraded to more of a conference. And he suggested in an interview with me that that could involve bringing all the big shots, as he called it, to the table, not just the EU and the US. In your role and from the position of the German government, what are your thoughts on this proposal?
So we as German government, we are determined to support the EU-facilitated dialogue. We strongly support the work of Miroslav Lajčák on behalf of the European Union and of the High Representative Josep Borrell. And I think in the moment there's no option than sticking to the dialogue and trying to get implementation of the Ohrid Agreement on the track and on the road. And we urge on both sides to engage positively and constructively in this process.
But do you not think we've maybe reached a point at the moment that appears to be a bit of a dead end after what happened on the 24th of September? Do you think maybe there's a need for a certain push now?
I think that both sides are quite clear that they, at least in wording, stand to the agreement which has been reached in Ohrid. And I think it's very important to try to get implementation on the track and to get the positive track record step by step to get this working. I don't believe that inventing something new after we have a good agreement made in Ohrid is now sensible to be on the table.
But does that include also the Association of Serb Municipalities? Again, considering what happened, and if it does turn out there's been sort of input or knowledge of Belgrade, etc., does this not maybe change some of the things that have been agreed on before? And doesn't it put them in a different light?
Well, I mean, you know that in the Ohrid agreement, the ASMM is one of the topics which is important. And the sides until now couldn't agree on a clear implementation roadmap. So I think this is the step.
Yes.
To agree on. And of course, on this implementation roadmap, also the ASMM has the right moment in time, which is agreed. And exactly this is what we want now the sides to agree on, how to get with which steps that on track. And I think that it's also known that there will be an initiative coming on that. And we should support this initiative at the first hand.
I wanted to ask you as well, there are measures currently against Kosovo, and there is a draft, I understand, for potential measures against Serbia as well. Do you think measures are the way forward for both countries, or should we be looking at incentivizing them instead?
Measures are never a way forward, but sometimes if we ask for something very clear, like we did to Kosovo, and now like the European Union is doing to Serbia, it must be also clear that not following us can also have consequences. So, of course, we are in a bit of pity because we want to get forward with the region. We don't want to put measures because there's not enough progress. But, of course, also European Union has to be consequent in their policies and then also the expectations.
Now, moving on to enlargement, there has been a proposal from France and Germany that sort of encompasses reform and a new approach towards enlargement through different groups, etc. You've presented this. What's the feedback been? Do you see it gaining traction? Is it something that we could be looking at following in the future?
Well, I think the debate on gradual integration with the Growth Pact and with opening of specific parts of the acquis is in full swing. I cannot say what will be really the result in European level there, but I strongly believe, and this is also the conviction of my government, full-fledged membership on same eye level as everybody should be in the end the result. We don't want Western Balkans to be in a second-class membership. In the end, we want the Western Balkans being the same, also on the paper regarding the European citizenship as us. We are already part of the European family, and I think it doesn't make sense to say like, okay, you're just a second group or something. We can be more flexible on the way to get there, how to have also perhaps the possibility of have beneficiaries in beforehand, but we will not make a debate on the standards of respect and the standards of EU values.
Do you think the next batch of enlargement is possible by 2030, including Kosovo?
Possible is everything, but it depends on the reform track which is done. And to reach such a date, I don't say this date, but such a date, everybody has to start yesterday with delivering on the ground. And sometimes I compare what's delivered on the ground to the expectations, and then I see a mismatch. And I think this should be made more public in the region, that it's not about talking about dates, it's about delivering reforms on the ground. Acquis has 150,000 pages. 10 years ago, it was perhaps 90,000. EU is still going forward. And I mean, the region has to cope with it. Yeah?
Yes.
And some countries don't have a government in the moment. Some have difficulties in delivering reforms. We want everybody to deliver even more, and the European Union to deliver also their promises to those who delivered reforms on the ground, which is, of course, the second part of the problem.
Now, by the end of the year, we are expecting to see that accession negotiations could be opened with Moldova and Ukraine, which is a good thing if it happens. But this is something Albania, North Macedonia waited over a decade for. Do you foresee any situation where they could potentially be leapfrogging the Western Balkan countries with their EU path?
Well, this is out of my business to forecast. I think that actually in 2021, I was sitting as Mr. President Zelensky's office, and he was talking about the situation of North Macedonia as a threat for Ukraine. So we were talking about it. And I said, like, clearly, listen, Mr. President, whatever is good for the Western Balkans will be good in Ukraine, because it's bringing back the faith and the believing in EU accession is a tool which is necessary. Same as now other way around. Everything that's good for Ukraine and Moldova will be also good on the Western Balkans. This is a win-win situation for both. And I know that sometimes it's difficult to be seen like this in the region because of emotional issues and also waiting very long, like you mentioned. But I'm still convinced this is a win-win situation, and both should be seen together in the sense of geopolitical argument and delivering reforms on the ground.
So when we look at Albania, you know, we're very pro-EU, things are moving, albeit slowly. Serbia is stalled, if I may be blunt. Montenegro, I have no idea what's happening there. Kosovo applied at the end of last year. What more can member states, what more can regional states do to get this doing? And how can Germany sort of give a bit of an extra push? You know, we've talked about the EU side, but let's talk about the candidate country side as well.
So the enlargement reports will be published soon by the European Commission, and they will again lay out the broad variety of reforms which are needed, I think, especially regarding democracy, rule of law, pluralism. It's one important topic which is sometimes underestimated. It's not without reason that the European Union put this at the heart and at the beginning of the process. But also I think this idea of coming together as a six towards the European Union with a common regional market, creating more common agendas between the six on the path to Europe, on European standard. This is at the core of Berlin process to be helpful for the EU integration. And I think we should try to unleash this with a good starting point today with the summit in Tirana, unleash this potential even more.
Okay, one last question for you, not so serious. What do you think of Albania and Tirana? This is not your first time here. What are your impressions?
It's always great to be in Albania, but I think you should also leave Tirana and go to the even more beautiful parts of the country. I think it was a record season in tourism, and not without reason. And this will bring a lot of positive feedback. Everybody I meet is talking, this is such a gorgeous country, which is valid for the whole region. And usually I say, Albania is one of my favorite 6 countries in Europe, because I'm on behalf of every 6. Today it's my favorite because we're here. It's a lovely place, and it's great that it's taking place in Tirana, and everybody's feeling so well. I started today in Germany with 4 degrees. Now I'm standing with you in the sun.
Sweating, getting sunburned.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. You.